Hello. Today I'm going to be breaking down movement training. I've been watching quite a few videos. I've been analyzing why it's so effective, or at least why it seems to be so effective in Conor McGregor's tool belt. He calls himself a specimen of movement more so than he does a fighter. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and it came to me. I finally understood what all of this means. Let's first take a look at Muay Thai. What is Muay Thai?
视频前的你，如果在男性持久力、勃起硬度等方面不满意，现在就加郭老师微信358-163-379，让郭老师帮助你持久坚挺，延时20到40分钟，补肾壮阳，延时助勃，增强夫妻性生活，28天彻底告别快男软男，做回自信的自己。记住微信358-163-379。
But you restrict your range of motion, you restrict your range of movement. And that's the issue right there. Conor McGregor, he's the kind of guy who sits down and watches videos of a fighter for hours on end. And because his body is so open to different movements, different ways of moving, his body has become so adaptable because constantly conditioning it to move it weird ways and strange, exotic ways. When it comes to him observing his fighter, he can kind of sit there and analyze how he has to now move, how he has to now condition his body. He has made his body very pliable in a way that he can now adapt to his opponent. That is the art of movement training. That's why it's so effective. It's very similar to, and another facet to this, it kind of resonated with how Michael Venom Page and Anderson Silva sometimes fight. You know, Michael Venom Page and Anderson Silva, they sometimes dance and move in irregular ways, because they're not really restricted to a single technique. And so that's kind of what movement training instills as well. Your ability to move in weird ways that aren't typically easily interpreted by your opponent because your opponent's not used to seeing it. This places a lot of cognitive burden on them, a lot more stress on them, having their brain trying to encode what you're doing. And there isn't really one fixed pattern. It's nothing you've seen before, even if there is. So how are you going to work against it? The primary function of movement training seems to be to become more adaptable to your opponent. That's the ideal fixation of it. And not just that, but when you become so intelligent in your own body's movements, you become more observant of your opponent's movements. So take Chad Mendes, for example. That when Conor was fighting him, where Conor would lift one knee trying to bait his wrestling takedown, and he would try and go for a punch doing that. Or take Jose Aldo, for example. He knows he punches a specific way given the certain conditions. He tried creating those conditions, jumping back and forth, throwing gentle kicks in the beginning, and a gentle kick in the beginning, trying to bait out that one punch. That's essentially what Conor's trying to do. He tries to bait out techniques because he's so well versed at understanding movement patterns. Right? Because that's what he's training into himself all day, all the time. When he sees other people moving in very linear patterns, he adapts to exploit it. And that's a hidden art to movement training. That's why it seems to be so effective in his favor. It seems like people knock themselves up by falling into his punches. And the moment they do that, he just precisely keeps tapping away at your chin until you pass out. This seems to be the premise Conor is taking towards his fighting style. And he obviously has a very fixed, strong background in kickboxing, even though he does primarily seem like a boxer. Right? He does primarily seem like a boxer, but he does have a background in kickboxing. He won the amateur Irish boxing championship or something like that, which is considering a place like Ireland where everyone freaking bare-knuckle boxes, that's a pretty big deal. Considering his foundation is strong, movement training seems to be an excellent way to bring in this style that's not only confusing to his opponent, but trains your brain to pick up on patterns, which is the entire premise that Conor's been working with. He destroys his opponent by baiting them. He baits their movement and adapts to it. He adapts to their movement and baits particular outcomes that they've refined time and time again, over and over and over again, right? So karate kicks, you've been conditioned to kick a certain way. Taekwondo, you've been conditioned to kick a certain way. He baits those out of you. He sees people who've spent hours and hours and hours and hours on end, despite how fast and powerful that kick is. Because they've refined it so well, he looks for ways to bait out that move. Beidou that one move that allows him to sink in his killer left hook, right? His killer left cross. So that's basically the premise of movement training, opening up your body in a way that flows more naturally and becomes more adaptable like water to your opponent, and essentially makes you more difficult to read. It's very difficult to read how you're going to strike next. It's not a martial art on its own, but it's a very good foundation. It's like oxygen and hydrogen, right? Hydrogen on its own burns. Oxygen on its own doesn't really burn, but when you combine the two, there's a massive explosion. And movement training seems to be that oxygen, the catalyst that helps him accentuate his boxing ability. So, that's the gist of this video. I think the same premise could be placed in any form of dance, which is what Michael Venom Page seems to do. He incorporates facets of dance. You could probably even use ballet, to be honest. And the way you can just open up and move your body in weird ways that aren't traditional, conventional, have a really potent way of messing with your opponent's psychology. Right? And that's the gist of it. He adapts to your movement and he opens his up so you can't read it. That's the gist of what movement training does for him, and that's probably one of the reasons why he's so effective. Not just his killer punches, his killer power, but his flowy, his unpredictableness as a result of this training. And I think Ido Portal's a genius. He's probably misunderstood for a very long period of time. People probably just didn't understand him. But as I watched more videos of him, as I began to understand him, solving kinetic issues was the main goal, and I saw that happening. I saw that happening every fight. As Conor adapted to his opponent's weaknesses, he never seems to follow a similar style. He seems to move very irregularly, and it's almost as if he becomes a complete counter to his opponent before, the moment the fight hits. Right? Careful study and an openness of the body, not relying on one technique, is the gift movement training gives. And that's what I see, that's what I've come to understand. If you have any ideas in regards to your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. That was my video for today. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, this has been Ekram talking about Ido Portal's movement training. Peace.